Hello and welcome to No Place to Call Home, a St Petrocs podcast. The topic of today's discussion is the St Petrocs winter services and some resident origins stories. Some of the content discussed may be distressing for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Episode 1, asking for help isn't a weakness.
Yay! High five, that's beautiful. Welcome to the first ever St Petrocs podcast. Welcome everybody. It's an exciting day, long time in the making, so really happy that we're all here. I am Natalie. We are all residents of St Petrocs. Our first episode is about the St Petrocs winter services and how they've impacted on some of our residents for the better. St Petrocs have decided to start a podcast to mostly release the stigma or relieve some stigma around people who are homeless and how people become homeless. Our first guest today is James. James, welcome to the pod.
Thank you very much. I'm James, I'm 42, born in Truro, so pro-Cornishman. I've worked all my life since I was 14.
That's
until a year ago. My life turned up, went dark and went upside down. So. But you'll hear the story.
Yeah, we'll definitely hear the story. We're so excited to have you on today. And it's so courageous of you to be able to talk about such a difficult part of your life. So thank you for coming on. But it's not just me and James here, guys. We've got a couple of the other residents here with us as well. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, who would like to go first?
Hi, I'm Shane, and I'm also St Petrocs resident, and I'm the quiet one, so I will speak when I will ask questions.
Quiet one, but with like the nicest voice. I keep asking him if he can do some audio books because I love hearing you speak. And who else have we got here? Pip, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Pip, and I've been with St Petrocs for over 2 years now in Cornwall.
Oh, brilliant. So, you said you're from Cornwall. Would you be able to tell us about, just to deep dive into this topic, about how you first became homeless?
I became homeless due to the high rents.
Oh, goodness.
I spent 2 years caring for my mum with Alzheimer's. And then a year after she died, I noticed that my life, you had to choose between heating and local. Family and friends started to step aside and do on. So I was left on my own. I managed to hang on for another year. And then Christmas last year, I had an eviction notice on the door. I came back from work, giving me 3 weeks.
Oh, goodness.
The rent went up to about 700.
I'm so sorry to hear that you went through such a tumultuous experience. That must have been so tough to go through.
That was tough. No, I asked family, no.
It's
probably the darkest moment, of my life. That was.
So how did you feel when you realised that you were not only going to be homeless, but you may have to sleep rough?
I didn't think of it. No, it was completely.
Was it just like next thing?
Yeah, next thing.
How to live day to day to be able to get through.
Day to day. Yeah.
That sounds like such a tough experience. I can't imagine what that felt like.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to sleep rough?
I slept rough for 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah. And,
would you be able to give us a brief a sum up of sort of the experience that you felt sleeping on the street?
I slept in field shelters, slept in hedgerow,
Goodness.
underneath a railway bridge. But you never felt safe. You kept moving on. You on edge all the time.
Which season was it in? Was it in like the summer or the winter?
January, in the heart of
winter to have to sleep rough.
And there was like 5 days continuously drizzle, so I was continuously down.
Yeah, like trench foot.
Yeah. We tried to go off sleep, but it was so cold. I said, if I fall asleep, you may not wake up again. I never ate
Never didn't eat for 5 days?
I didn't eat for 5 days, no.
What would you describe the feeling of being hungry for 5 days?
All I had was just, they kicked me out, and so I just grabbed, all I could grab was just a bag, and a pack of biscuits, and I was on the verge of like, putting my hand in the dustbin and, try to foot, but no,
After talking to other residents, I've heard from people who have slept rough that it can't. Being constantly hungry, it's like the fear that you have, and I felt it personally. The fear that you have of being that hungry again is not a particularly easy thing. But then it's almost like you train your body to kind of be like, okay, I don't feel this. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And what about accessing your basics like water?
I never drunk.
Oh goodness! Not
Mind,
5 days.
your mind is such,
Yeah.
You're thinking about, oh, where am I going to be tomorrow?
So like, because you're thinking about the next move and the next move, it's food and water is kind of like in the back of your mind. My goodness, that's just such a terrifying experience, especially in winter. I would like to think that people can really sympathise with or empathise. Yeah, let's use empathise instead, about the fear that some people must have, especially with rising rent costs, that it must be really, really just, for some people, it must be kind of in the corner of their minds. So when it comes to becoming homeless, would you sort of say that it's like one in a select few people that homelessness happens to, or that it can happen to anyone?
It can happen to anyone. It can happen to your next door neighbour or your best friend.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't expect to be homeless. 3 weeks prior, I was just sitting around with family celebrating Christmas.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, your world has turned.
I felt the same when it happened to me.
About 2 days in, I went to a food bank. Knowing all my stuff was left at home.
Oh gosh.
You had to get. I said I left my passport, birth certificate. All I had with me was a bank card.
Oh wow.
And a change of clothes.
Yeah.
That was tough. I said no. I was proud. No, I was proud. I refused to help. I felt a bit embarrassed.
I can empathise with that feeling, because for a lot of people asking for help isn't the easiest. But I think what people need to almost like change their mindset on is that asking for help isn't a weakness, especially if you'd be a person that would, if anyone else, one of your friends, for instance, came to you and say, this is my situation, you'd probably help them in a second.
Yeah, I would do that to like somebody on the street or a complete stranger or family. But when it happened to me, it's...
So what do you feel the turning point was? Was it St. Petrocs who originally helped you get off the street?
Yes, St. Petrocs, yeah.
How did you find out about them, or did they approach you?
Lucky I had a friend who worked for Shelter. And then Shelter redirected me to...
That's Shelter England.
Shelter England,
yeah.
So there was full up. So they said if... stay with us till about mid-afternoon. And mid-afternoon, I went to the library, and luckily, St. Petrocs said our houses are full, so they booked me in a travel lodge for 3 weeks until... What
was the feeling like, knowing that you were going to be in a travel lodge and not having to sleep rough anymore?
I can focus a bit, you...
was it just like a relief?
Like a relief,
oh, thank goodness. So when you did become with St. Petrocs, would you be able to tell us a bit about the sort of experience that you had when you first came with them, like the help that they'd offered and the work they were doing with you?
The first time was March the 15th this year.
Wow.
That was with Natalie. It's quite strange because I'm quite used to be independently on my own living. And I had to share a house. That got about 3 or 4 weeks to get used to that because I went.
Just to interject, sorry, when you say Natalie, is that one of the staff?
One of the staff.
Yeah, she's lovely, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. All the staff are, though.
Yeah, Can't say a bad word against.
I'd say one of the best things that I could say about the staff at St. Petrocs is they treat you like a human being. They don't talk down to you. They don't talk to you. I found personally people, if they look at you and you're in a minority group like being homeless or like being disabled, it's almost like they talk to you in like as if they were talking to a child in like a slightly different voice. Whereas everybody at St. Petrocs, they treat you like the intelligent adult that you are, which after certain experiences is quite a breath of fresh air, to say the least. I don't know if you can agree.
Absolutely agree, yeah.
What was it like when you first got into the house? What was your like first thoughts?
Bit of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah,
quite a bit of relief.
Bit of relief, yeah.
I remember feeling that. I was like, I think I saw you on the first day that I came in actually, and I just cried because I was like, it's clean and it's lockable.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest things, is that I saw locks on doors and was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
It was like I was sorry, thank goodness, let's edit God out just in case.
Yeah.
And it was like it was almost like feeling like you were saved, like they were acting like the white knight that people like dream about. What was the biggest help that you'd receive from St. Petrocs? Not just being able to get the housing, but was there anything else they do, like the experiences or the food bank help, things like that?
Or just get your life, all the things that you're entitled to, like the benefits and welfare that you didn't expect to. But
I thought that too.
Yeah.
What do you think some of the main stereotypes are that of why people are homeless and why people just automatically almost assume that that's why they've got there?
I just think sometimes society is quite judgmental, around these things, and a lot of people will just see people in the doorways as, begging for whatever they need, really. But yeah, I think sometimes it's just our attitudes towards, it very negative. Yeah. And there's I've met some really, really, really nice people when I've been out and about and helped them, and not every homeless person's in the doorway. Yeah. A lot of guys like to be off the beaten track in a tent somewhere because they need to be on their own. So there's a lot of homelessness out there, but half of it you don't even see. Yeah. Because they're invisible. They're invisible.
Yeah. Oh, that's. It's so funny you use the word invisible. I remember somebody trying to make a joke about it once, calling them the Invisibles, and I was like, how can you say that? Yeah. Because it could literally happen to anybody. Pip, what do you think? What do you think one of the main stereotypes is, or a few of them are, about why people...
Where do you want me to start?
Oh. Wherever you, at the beginning, that's usually a good spot.
Just hearing James's story, because my experience of homelessness, my first real understanding of it, brought up in the sort of like the ferocious kind of like 80s and 90s, really, really aggressive attitude towards money. So the division in society is just huge with regard to have and have not. When I came down to Cornwall, it was really in your face.
It is rife. It's meant to be one of the most... the county that's meant to be with the most rate of homeless, I think. Yeah. I want to say that in a different way.
And then I was one of them.
Well, yeah.
Because I came down to Cornwall work-related, and I was married. I had for a multitude of reasons, a complete mental breakdown, and decided to sort of like top that up with an alcohol addiction, big time. So I was masking all the time because of domestic abuse. So a lot of it was the work that I had chosen to do was very much, as I hadn't had any formal education, I was self-made, which allowed me to get by without any academia or or financial backing. I just gradually built myself, and I was the main carer for my mother as well.
You should be so proud of yourself for those achievements.
I'm all right about it.
Yeah.
I'm all right about it.
Yeah.
But when the marriage finally got to such a state that the only time I realised there was domestic abuse going on was when my then partner started to hit my best friend.
Oh.
And that was the only thing that knocked on my door. It was just a very, very, not gradual downward spiral, quite rapid, to the extent that I was sofa surfing with friends. I didn't have a clue about any state benefits, anything. I just didn't know it was there. So all I did know was there's an amount that I received on a fortnightly basis. And as soon as that was in my bank account, then I could kind of like 4 times I ended up in hospital in a near-death situation because of the alcohol. And and the 4th time when I it was only because I was in a bed adjacent to somebody else who tried to commit suicide that put a mirror up to me and something just all of a sudden hit home. I guess the reason I was saying what I was saying is because when somebody looks at somebody who's homeless, who looks to be drinking or self-abusing in some way, shape or form, there's often a reason behind that.
If I could open one of the questions I asked James earlier out to both of you, actually, or all of us, is do you feel like homelessness happens to just a select few of us, or it could literally happen to anybody at any time in their life?
Well, I think they say, don't they, or there's a saying that everyone is just 2 paychecks away from being homeless.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I mean, if you're in a job maybe like a 0 hours contract, when you are naturally living life precariously, because so much can go wrong so easily, and with the cost of living and everything else.
But I
you
agree.
have to remind me of.
You said because of cost of living and everybody is just 2 paychecks away from becoming homeless.
and just circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, some people don't have big families to fall back on, safety nets, things. You know, and not everybody has that kind of blessing, really. You know, to have just to have a safety net. You know, when you're down and going through a hard time. I never thought it would happen to me. I've always been professional and had good jobs and stuff, and just sometimes life and circumstances and health and you know, all these things can contribute, and suddenly you find yourself, you know, from going from a really good place, you know, just living independently, but you know, coming into a situation like this. But you know, I think I'm very grateful for St. Petrocs.
Oh, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, they were like a knight in shining armour.
A knight in shining armour.
Yeah. White knight on the horse.
Yeah. And we're here we are in beautiful Cornwall.
Oh, can't beat it.
You know, it's there are worse places to, you know.
Yeah. But okay, another quite open question to everyone is what do we see as the way forward? What do we all feel would be most beneficial to end homelessness? Not just in Cornwall, but in the UK. Big question.
I would say it's a societal situation that needs to have a little bit of a remedy, because personally, I don't think you need to be caught unless you fall. And so I've got a very good friend who's an Aussie, and they have scenarios where there are things called safe houses within a certain geographical area. So you can, when you feel vulnerable, and that's just as much a male thing as a female thing, go and I'd use the word explain your vulnerability. I think there isn't enough open discussion in society about where the gaps, and they're massive, are.
What about you, James? What do you feel like would be one of the most beneficial things?
You're not going to change a problem unless society changes, you know.
Would it be on that sort of subject topic in that case, do you all feel like if people would just sort of see homeless people, maybe start talking about it and maybe sort of take the stigma away and think, oh, actually, it could have been because of anything? Thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story. I feel like it's going to be so impactful to a lot of listeners and hopefully help take a lot of the stereotype and stigma away from such a relevant topic in our day and age.
St Petrocs have launched their Winter Appeal, which is raising vital funds for their winter services. Please visit the St Petrocs website to find out how you can help light the way out of homelessness this winter. Thank you for listening. This podcast was produced by New Lynn Art Gallery and the Exchange's digital production services.